So today I called this talk Building and Letting Go, where science of mind meets Zen. If you've been listening for a while, you know I teach science of mind, but you also know I've been doing a lot with Zen lately. And I chose the title Building and Letting Go because building to me represents science of mind. Letting go means Zen. So as we explore these two ideas, science of mind and Zen Buddhism, they arise from different cultures and vocabularies. However, they both point us toward one thing: the direct realization of truth and the conscious creation of our experience. So each of these talk about the idea that there's truth. The truth is there's only one, infinite, all-knowing, everywhere present. Everything else beyond that is an illusion created in your mind. And through the illusion created in your mind, science of mind talks about how to use that and to consciously create that illusion that you experience. The foundational principles of science of mind is it teaches that there's one infinite mind and that we live, move, and have our being within this mind. We're always using it, consciously or unconsciously. Our thought is creative and our beliefs shape our reality. Our beliefs, perceptions shape our experience. We're not separate from it. We have use of that mind. We have use of building a life based on whatever we can imagine and the belief that we have toward that. Zen Buddhism, on the other hand, particularly as a practice in the Mahayana tradition, points to no self, emptiness, and direct experience beyond the conceptual mind. Science of mind was in the conceptual mind. Zen Buddhism is beyond that. It teaches that the illusion of separateness creates suffering, and awakening is seeing through that illusion. In other words, the primary thing about Buddhism is that all life is suffering. The key that what makes us suffer is our desire, and that there is a way out, and the way out is the Eightfold Path. And we just went through a series of 8 weeks talking about the Eightfold Path, and all of it starting with right intention. So here we are, we set an intention today to understand how these two blend. Emptiness means nothing. So how can emptiness, divine, infinite, be nothing? Well, think about it this way. From a Zen perspective, there's only one. It is infinite. If there's only one, there's nothing to compare against. If there's nothing to compare against, there's nothing. It's only when you compare that there is something. There's only when you compare is there something beyond emptiness. You can't have emotions if you're not comparing. Without judgment, there are no emotions. A direct experience of the infinite is pure bliss. In other words, no judgment. No judgment is total love. Science of mind emphasizes the conscious use of the law to shape your experience, while Zen emphasizes releasing all attachment to experience to discover what is beyond it. One is directional, the other is spacious, but both of them seek freedom. Science of mind seeks freedom from the habitual thought patterns that you've got that are demonstrating a lot of misery in your life. Zen Buddhism seeks freedom from having to desire anything and anyone. That you should be just content with just being and observing all of life. It's fascinating that these two can coexist. Let's look at them from this perspective of relationship with thought. Science of mind, thought is the tool. We affirm. We visualize. We mentally treat, do spiritual mind treatment to bring about healing and change. We use thought intentionally to align with spiritual truth. In other words, we know that thought creates. We understand our mind thinks and how we think creates perception, perspective, and that creates experience. The other day I was in the gym and there was a man there and he had a t-shirt on and the t-shirt said something like uplift. And I was just so focused on that t-shirt. And then he came back about 5 minutes later on a different machine and I noticed he had a tattoo sleeve on each of his arms and each of his legs. I had never even noticed it because I was so focused on what was written on the shirt. Think about that in your life. Your perspective limits what you see and experience. In fact, what you see and experience is about 0.0000000, and I'll keep going for a long time, 1% of everything that's going on. So our thought in science of mind brings about our healing and the change that we're seeking. In Zen, they look at it a little differently. They say thought is a barrier. In Zen, we sit in silence to observe it, to detach from it, to eventually let it dissolve. We realize truth, not through thinking, but through direct presence beyond the mind. In religious science and science of mind, we too meditate. And we understand that in meditation, you can slow the thought and you can be unattached to the thought. You let the thoughts come in and your thoughts go out. You do that by focusing on your breath coming in, focusing on your breath going out. See, true freedom is detaching from your thought and stopping that thought from controlling your life. Science of mind says, change your thinking, change your life. Zen says, stop identifying with the thought and wake up to life as it is. Do you see the similarities starting to happen here? Science of mind, you change what you the direction of your perception, your life changes. Zen says, stop identifying with the thought. Stop saying the thought is yours. It's thought, it's just happening. And you're here to observe life as it is. And this is the paradox. The paradox here is that we live in a virtual reality with a body and a mind. And at the core of all that we are, we're the infinite, individualized, observing everything that's happening. And so we go into balance. We have to learn to balance it. So let's look at it a little deeper then. From spiritual practice, science of mind emphasizes meditation, visioning, and spiritual mind treatment. All active, all directed practices designed to impress the subconscious, to impress thought, a direction, an idea into the subconscious, and in doing so awaken to our spiritual power that whatever we impress upon the subconscious, we create. Zen focuses on meditation and mindfulness in daily action. It's not about getting anything, it's about stripping everything away. Very few people practice Zen because they're in this paradise called earth, called body, called emotions. And so I believe the blending of these two practices brings a sense of harmony in which we can live and experience a life. Science of mind says, speak the word with conviction. That's right. If you don't speak your word with conviction, with belief behind it, motion behind it, you're not changing what your perception is. You're not changing your belief. Therefore, nothing in your life changes. Zen says, say nothing and listen. Both are valid depending on whether you're building form or dissolving illusion. See, I think that's the key to life. I think we're caught in between the two. Sometimes we're building form in our lives. Sometimes we're dissolving the illusion. I love that Shiva, the Hindu god, is the god, the destroyer. What does it do? You've got one god creating and another god maintaining, and you've got Shiva destroying. Why? So more can be created. You can't advance without the old being let go. So how do each of these two philosophies view the self? Science of mind teaches that the self is a divine, individualized expression of spirit. That you are not your ego, but you are a spiritual being with creative power and purpose. So science of mind teaches that you're not your ego, you're not your body, but you are an individualized expression of spirit that can have any experience that you desire with your body and mind using the power of your mind. Zen teaches that the self is empty, empty of inherent existence. What you call I is a bundle of conditions, temporary, shifting, and ultimately illusionary. What you say is, I am an insurance executive. I did that for a while. I am a father. I am this. That's just temporary. All those things change. That's why the great teaching is I am. I am means you're everything, and yet you're nothing. And then you limit the I am by putting a word after the am. But you can have, how would I say this in human form, a more pleasant experience depending on the I ams that you're choosing. Science of mind affirms the empowered self, the aware self, as God in expression. Zen deconstructs the self entirely. Yet both point to liberation from ego attachment and the identification with the finite. Ego attachment is about finite, because in the finite there's judgment. There's black and white. In the infinite, there is no judgment. The purpose of spiritual practice is, Science of Mind says the goal is awaken to spiritual truth, to live with intention, demonstrate health, prosperity, peace, and ultimately realize oneness. It's a path to oneness. Using that we're in a paradise. We were born on earth. No place greater in the planets that we know of. With the life that we've got, things to do. Think about it. People want to go to Mars. What's on Mars? Nothing. There's nothing on Mars. There's dirt. There's dust. There's nothing. Look at what we've got, the landscape we've got, the animal kingdom. My God, this is paradise. In Zen, the purpose of practice is to awaken to your Buddha nature, to let go of suffering, and to live in the natural flow of existence without grasping or resistance. In other words, without consciously choosing to create something. I think that's really the key thing, the difference between science of mind and Zen. I choose to consciously create a healthy body. Now, when my body's not healthy, I accept it as it is, and then I use my tools of the power of mind to bring my body back into homeostasis. One teaches, science of mind, how to consciously shape the dream. Zen teaches how to wake up from the dream entirely. I believe in living in the intersection. Science of mind gives me the tools to create. Zen gives me the clarity to release. When I want to manifest, I use the power of intention, belief, and treatment. I use the tools of science of mind. When I want to let go, I return to silence, breathe, and simply being. I use my Zen. So let's talk about this toolkit. First, create when it's time to create. Surrender when it's time to surrender. Know when to speak the word. Know when to sit still in the silence. I think this is the ultimate dance of life. Knowing when to create, when to just surrender, to let go, when to speak that word to create, and when to be in silence. In silence is when you know your truth. You see, both paths, science of mind and Zen, require discipline. Both paths confront illusion, and both ultimately bring you home to the truth of who you are and what you really are. Pure, infinite love. What I'm going to say now may be controversial. Don't care. There's no right path. There are many, many tools out there. You have to make the determination, what is the right path for you? I, at this time in my life, am using a balanced path of science of mind, the power to create my life experience, and Zen, returning to my source of the observer and into oneness. And that's the balance that I live, do my best to live in every moment. Perfection, no such thing. But experience, I got a lot of it. And I want you to test these things for yourself. Because when you test them, you can own them and you can create the most incredible life. One that's deeply connected and one where you're deeply powerful, creating the dream, the illusion, but then letting it go, not being attached to how it falls out. So remember, you are the power in your life. Life and how you live it is always your choice. With that, much love.